Good morning, Australia. This is Chris Smith. It is fabulous Friday, the 31st of July, last day of the month. G'day, g'day. Good to have your company. I'm broadcasting live from the studios of Radio 2SM. That's 1269 in Sydney. And through the Super Radio network, which includes stations in New South Wales, Queensland and also the Northern Territory. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the Castle of Common Sense. Some sad news to start off with. You may have heard this in the news bulletin. Australian music journalist and broadcaster Glenn A. Baker has died aged 74. Known for his vast music knowledge, Baker won the BBC's Rock Brain of the Universe 3 times in the mid-1980s. In the mid-1970s, Baker was part of a research project which resulted in the formation of 2JJ, which of course became Triple J. But what an incredible radio career he had. He was at Triple M there for a while. He hosted a trivia program. He was manager of the band Old 55 and created the Raven record label. He's a terrific fellow, Glenn A. Baker, and he would always be prepared to give, whether it was a tour through his incredible archives and, well, it was a private museum he had in his home in the Blue Mountains, but he was always available to talk about music and singers and bands, and a sad loss, not just for the industry, but also for Australia in general. He was the guru, Glenn A. Baker. Well, Spain is deploying military forces to one of its overseas territories after tens of thousands of migrants arrived by sea over several days this week, overwhelming authorities in the Spanish city of Ceuta. Dramatic footage has emerged showing scores of people swimming across the border from Morocco, rushing into the city. It was like a wild party gone mad, with officials describing the situation as a total humanitarian and social emergency. Border officials say the crossing point was effectively collapsed, with thousands making the journey in recent days. At least 9 people have died attempting the crossing. 60 people have died trying to make the journey just in the past year. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez says the government is working with Morocco to restore order, while Madrid has now sent in the military to support border forces and maintain security. They've got to get a new border fence up first. US President Donald Trump says his newly formed Board of Peace has reached an agreement to disarm Hamas and other armed groups in Gaza, calling it a major step towards ending the conflict. It is a major step. Where does that leave the ALP now, given the fact that they passed an edict at their national conference that they wouldn't call on Hamas to disarm? Does that mean that Penny Wong goes to the United Nations to complain about Hamas not having weapons? Just being facetious. The backlash continues over the ABC's decision to air a short film depicting graphic violence against mining billionaire Gina Rinehart, with growing criticism over the response from authorities, which was just appalling, especially from the ABC. But yesterday I highlighted what Annika Wells, the Federal Communications Minister, had to say. She did a quick flick pass on this. She could only muster up the description of being unacceptable. And yesterday, eSafety Commissioner Julie Inman-Grant was asked about this and what she thought of the ABC putting it to air. But worse, the question was asked about what she has to say about the footage remaining on the ABC website.
Sorry, one more. You're focusing on violent content online. A controversial segment on the ABC, Race Around the World, that puts violence against Gina Rinehart, has been referred to their internal ombudsman. This episode remains online at the moment. Should it be taken down as it does depict violence?
That would be a matter for the Australian Communications and Media Authority, who is the broadcasting regulator.
No, it would not. No, it would not. The fact that it went to air as a broadcaster is a matter for ACMA, yes. But the question was asked about the fact that it's online on social media. That's her remit. That's her responsibility. And she couldn't even muster a derogatory response, palming it off. What's wrong with these people? Do they hate Gina Rinehart that much, do they? These people are jealous, that's all. The filmmaker herself behind the video has issued what could be described as a partial apology, saying she is sorry to anyone I offended. Couldn't even muster up the words Gina Rinehart. Kate McGuinness says her work was intended to be cartoonish and satirical and was never meant to promote violence. It comes 18 days after the ABC refused to apologise. Just appalling. Anthony Albanese is facing pressures again from his own party in the state realm over the government's plan to cut higher private health insurance rebates for Australians over 65. Haven't we discussed this on the open line ad nauseum? But the state governments are warning it could place even greater strain on public hospitals. It was always going to do that. But the Treasurer and the Prime Minister couldn't give a damn. New polling commissioned by Private Healthcare Australia suggests almost 4 in 10 older Australians say they're more likely to drop their private health cover if the changes go ahead. And we've made mention of this over and over again. Of course that's going to happen. They can't afford stuff. You can only take so much blood out of a stone. So they're going to drop their private health cover because they're no longer covered by a rebate. And what happens? They're going to line up at the local ED, pack our hospitals even more than they're packed right now. Ryan Park, the Health Minister in New South Wales, says the projections are very concerning, warning the Commonwealth is just adding to this pressure by sending even more people into our public hospitals. That's exactly the case. Now, in sport, I had to shake my head when I finally learnt what the score was in this football game last night. Roosters beating the Cowboys, 82 points to 12. Halfback Sam Walker was at the centre of the destruction, pulling the strings in a dominant performance. They raced to a 48-point lead at half-time. It was probably looking closer to 100 points at that stage. The 70-point margin is the biggest defeat in North Queensland's history and the most points they've ever conceded in a match. I wonder whether the coach would have signed that extended deal if it hadn't been done 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, if that score had been registered before the signing. Boy, oh boy. It's now 6 straight wins for the Roosters, who look to be hitting form at exactly the right time of the season. That's the state of play. Now, in the Castle of Common Sense, I try to get as many of our listeners on the air to express their views. And a big invitation today to those who've refrained, thinking to themselves, oh, that sounds a little bit tough. It's not tough. It's therapeutic. Have your say, especially if you've got plenty to say. First-time callers most invited. 13 12 69. On the guest list, you'll be hearing from a very formidable and newly formed tag team today, women's rights advocate Sally Grover and the owner of that pole dancing studio on the Gold Coast, Gnomes Whitney. They have been in contact. They are both now in the middle of legal fights to ensure that Australia redefines the definition of a woman. And let me tell you, they're not going to give up until justice is exhausted. Best-selling author and CEO Alex Malley, he's on deck today to help us tackle the day's big issues, including a pushback by the states against that private health insurance rebate drop for the over 65s. Mike the Oz Trucker wants to tear into Dr. Anthony Fauci after his disgraceful appearance at that Senate hearing in Washington. Mike has never been a fan of the controlling laws we were subject to during COVID, so he's ready to fire on all cylinders. And we'll talk sport with the captain coach, Graham Hughes. That and more on the program. The number's 13 12 69. This is Chris Smith on 2SM and the Super Radio Network. Well, another day and another 3 major gobsmacking stories have been uncovered related to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Today's coverage is next level, and it proves beyond doubt that the NDIS has devolved into an out-of-control budgetary black hole hijacked by systemic corruption and sheer government incompetence. What was envisioned as a compassionate lifeline for vulnerable Australians, I think, has transformed into a lawless ATM for scammers, grifters and even organised crime syndicates. The government's chronic mismanagement too, and I mean on both sides of politics, has left taxpayer funds completely exposed because too often they've turned a blind eye to massive systemic bleeding while everyday families struggle to access genuine care. 3 devastating investigations published today expose the shocking depth of this crisis within the NDIS. There's a damning front-page report by the Daily Telegraph outlining the trial and sentencing of former NDIS poster boy James Davies, once a celebrated disability advocate who lobbied prime ministers for the scheme's creation. Davies weaponised his insider knowledge as an NDIS planner. He deliberately falsified participant data to siphon off $700,000 to fund a lavish lifestyle, boasting he would live like a king in Bali. Then there's an expose by The Australian revealing how shonky providers have systemically exploited loose compliance frameworks by hiding unapproved treatments under generic billing categories. Operators have been charging taxpayers up to $194 an hour for luxury lifestyle activities like golf lessons and horse therapy. And if that wasn't enough, most terrifying of all is the contribution today from the Australian Financial Review. It reports on a Senate inquiry where top law enforcement officials confirmed that violent organised crime gangs have thoroughly infiltrated the NDIS as well. These syndicates are creating dedicated fraud rings, intimidating disabled participants and using threats of physical violence to secure fake claims before recycling the millions in stolen cash straight back into broader illicit operations. Don't forget, we had charges laid earlier in the week too against alleged fraudsters who are working within the public servant pool, working inside the NDIS. This isn't just a policy failure, it is a moral emergency. While the Albanese government offers nothing but empty rhetoric and slow-moving oversight, criminal networks are getting rich of funds meant for the profoundly disabled. The NDIS is fundamentally broken, and until the government implements radical structural overhauls and ironclad oversight, Australian taxpayers will continue to bankroll a system where corruption thrives and the truly vulnerable are left behind. It is not good enough to just send in more investigators to nab some of these scumbags. The NDIS needs to be structurally rebuilt. Let's take a break and we'll get to your calls. I also want to catch up with John Ruddick. I'll do that in 2 minutes from now. He's in trouble with ICAC, but not the way you think. How about we start the program with a little bit of, I guess, feedback that resulted from a segment that occurred on this program on Tuesday. Now, as you know, the New South Wales leader of the Libertarian Party, John Ruddick, is a regular on this show, has been since I began here at the beginning of last year. We love having him here. But he's got in the way of ICAC, who felt it necessary to actually send John a letter based on what he said on this program. Now, the headline story in the Telegraph today is "Some Sensitive Souls at ICAC." It's found in the confidential section. It reads like this: "They must be sensitive souls over at the ICAC." New South Wales Libertarian MP John Ruddick was more than a little surprised to receive an aggressive letter from the Commission after publicly questioning whether key details of its investigation had been linked to the Sydney Morning Herald. Now, publicly questioning, well, I should tell the editor, you mean on this program earlier in the week, maybe it was too hard to say 2SM or my name. Might have been a bit too hard for them. It says the newspaper hardly hid where the information came from either. Let's get to John Ruddick and find out what this is all about. You made... Good morning, John.
G'day, Chris.
You made these allegations about ICAC on this program on Tuesday, right?
On Tuesday morning, that's correct, yes.
Yeah. So they got very upset. When did you receive your aggressive letter?
Well, what I then did is after I got our interview and I posted it on X, the old Twitter, and then this time yesterday, I'm sitting here at my desk watching ICAC, and an email comes through from ICAC, and I'm thinking, oh, this will be fun. I thought they were going to try and threaten me and tell me to shut up.
Ah.
Okay, but look, what they took issue with is this. In 1988, Nick Greiner gets elected the Premier of New South Wales. He was a very good Premier, and what he did is he did make a big mistake, though. He set up ICAC. Okay, which ended up bringing him down, okay, and two other Liberal premiers. But anyway, when he set it up at the beginning, it wasn't not going to be a court, it was going to be a government department, so it couldn't send people to jail. It could investigate the vibe of corruption. And what they said is, when they set it up in 1988, the original ICAC law said that anyone who works for ICAC cannot leak to the media or cannot leak to anybody, including the media. And if they do and they're caught, punishable by up to 12 months in jail. Now that was very strict. That's stricter than the DPP.
Yeah.
Stricter than the cops. Because if you're a body investigating government corruption, we want the absolute highest standards of professionalism and independence. Now, what's happened? Now, I think that they've forgotten about that 1988 little rule, because every 2 or 3 years we have this big new Hollywood blockbuster of the smear machine called ICAC. Okay, and most of the time, not always, most of the time, it's people on the right. And now, what has made them? What has made them? ICAC's doing an investigation into itself because of the conversation you and I had, Chris. So it's good news. Now, what was the concerns? My concern is that somebody in ICAC is leaking to the Sydney Morning Herald. I don't have evidence, but I don't have definitive evidence, but I'm quoting from the Sydney Morning Herald. This is the Sydney Morning Herald on the 12th of July this year, not long ago. The Herald has been told by multiple sources unauthorised to speak publicly that ICAC's focus on Catholic schools, New South Wales surrounds payments, blah, blah, blah. So they've just said it.
Yeah.
Sources unauthorised to speak publicly.
Yes.
Okay. Now, then let's fast forward another couple of weeks, the 23rd of July. Sydney Morning Herald again. It's always the Sydney Morning Herald. They're the PR agency of ICAC, the smear machine. Sydney Morning Herald says on the 23rd of July, a leaked witness list shows that Whitelaw will front the Independent Commission Against Corruption, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's just two examples.
Yeah,
okay?
That may not have come from ICAC, but it has, at least it's come indirectly from ICAC.
Well, okay, there are possibilities of other leaks. Okay, well, we need to know what they are. Something's getting out of ICAC, and it's a criminal offence, so we need to investigate. Now, what are the other options? Now, it's possible somebody's gone in and hacked the ICAC computers and then leaked it to the Sydney Morning Herald. Okay, well, if that's the case, we want to know. We want an investigation into that.
Hacking, yes, yeah, an investigation into the hacking. All right.
Yes, it might be a spouse. maybe there's a senior person at ICAC, senior officer, come home with a laptop in the middle of the night. The wife's got up and forwarded stuff.
Or a bit of pillow talk.
Bit of pillow talk, exactly. Yeah. That's happened once or twice.
So you've gone back and just cited those quotes from the Herald as reasons why you suggest that they're leaking out of ICAC, and what was their response?
Well, I put that up on Twitter. Now, then what they have is there's this body above ICAC. Okay, ICAC's already mysterious and opaque. There's another one called the ICAC Inspector, and they can investigate ICAC. So what ICAC did when I said, well, look, I'm just quoting the Sydney Morning Herald. Okay, now the pub test would say, well, it sounds like it's quite likely somebody in ICAC is leaking to the Sydney Morning Herald, but we need to investigate it. So ICAC has written to the inspector and said, look, John Rennick's made these allegations. We're hereby asking you to investigate. Then they wrote to me and they said, look, we've launched an investigation, and if you'd like to contribute to that investigation, here's the email address. Right. So that's what I put up on social media yesterday, my contribution, which is basically a summary of what you and I have said 2 days ago and today.
That's very interesting. And Mark Latham, I notice online on X, has weighed into the ICAC hearings as well.
Well, look, Mark is the best policy brain that Macquarie Street's got. And I was chatting with him last night, and we were talking about, what is fundamentally wrong with ICAC. Now, they've got the power, Chris, to smear people, but they don't have any power to send anybody to jail. Okay. Now, sometimes at the end of an ICAC inquiry, they then go to the cops and they say, look, we recommend that charges be laid against this person. It doesn't happen often, but it does occasionally happen. So
Eddie Obeid, Daryl Maguire.
Well, that's right. Okay. Now, Labor Party figures, when the evidence is as high as the Himalayas, yes, then it does. Now, but what's happened with Nick Grider? He takes it to court. And it gets entirely vindicated, but it doesn't matter by that stage. He's already had to resign from Parliament.
Yeah.
Poor old Barry O'Farrell, and I'm not a fan of him. over a silly bottle of wine. He forgot about a bottle of wine. He should have just apologised and moved on. Now, Gladys, she had to step down as the Premier. That's a pretty big deal, being the Premier of the great state of New South Wales. And her boyfriend, well, we talked about this the other day, Daryl largely got exonerated as well. She didn't even go to court. So it's a smear machine. Either someone's broken a law or they have not broken a law. It doesn't go on a vibe.
We'll see what the inspector comes up with. You have initiated an ICAC investigation of ICAC. That is very powerful, John Ruddick. We're very happy to have you as part of our contributors on this program. Thank you for your time.
Good on you, Chris. Thanks for your interest, mate.
John Ruddick, the leader of the New South Wales Libertarian Party. So Jonathan Moran, it's 2S, S for Sally, M for Mum, all right? 2S, M on the AM band. My name is Chris Smith, all right? David on the Gold Coast, go ahead.
Yeah, hi there, Chris. How you going?
Very well, thank you.
Good. Look, I just wanted to bring to the attention of to your viewers that there's something they might not have thought about, and it was regarding a news story I saw just earlier in this week on Monday night, I think it was, about Pauline Hanson, Senator Pauline Hanson's court case loss.
Yeah.
And
it happened last week. Yep.
Correct. And the Member of Parliament who is the winner of that case, I guess, came out and spoke on the TV. Now, look, I've been around a long time, and, I can't speak for most listeners, but when I see a news report, especially regarding politics, there are times when I do need only about 15 seconds of the story, and I've got the picture. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm with you. You read between the lines quickly.
I think so. And what this woman came out and said that I saw is that she could not mourn the passing of Queen Elizabeth II.
Yeah.
And she gave a reason. And I've got to tell you, now that I've been around a long time, it's almost offensive to me that somebody comes into this country and she's in the position she's acquired, and
she doesn't even know the Queen.
Well, to me, I grew up as though the Queen was a God-fearing mother,
And so in reply to that, it was when Pauline Hanson said, "Pack your bags and piss off back to Pakistan."
Yeah, that's correct. And this is the problem that I've got in a way. And I'd like you, if you don't mind, Chris, just to let you know, there's a two-part to this story that had me up at 2 o'clock the following morning. And I need to go back nearly 60 years. When I was 9 years young, right? Now, there was a neighbour a couple of doors up from us, and he was an Italian fellow, regarded probably new to the country at the time, but had a wife and kids on the way. Now, he used to take me down to his fruit shop because he had lollies there, and we loved that when we're that age.
Yep.
Right? Now, on one occasion, and my father, incidentally, was doing shift work for a very important court.
You're going to have to speed this story up, David. I've got a full board of calls here.
So what the fellow did, he gave me a puff on a cigarette. Needless to say, all these many years later, right, I'm still a smoker, or I've given up many times.
Right.
What my point here is that these other countries who have cultures that to them are normalised, right? They don't understand what they're coming to. We used to see on the TV, clips on the TV that would show 10-year-old kids with cigarettes in their mouth at that age, right? Now, what these people who are new to this country don't understand is that they come from countries which have sinister, often evil and devious, normalised ways.
Yeah, especially third world countries full of corruption, and they come here and their level of respect for our foundations, that is the royal family, are not as respectful as they should be.
and they expect that they can just get on with their lives looking for their pot of gold. And when I looked at that woman on the TV and saw the yarmulke-shaped bit of gold in her nose, I'm thinking, oh, well, that's put there so she's reminded to never not smell the pot of gold.
Okay, all right. David, let's not get personal with her, but the fact that she said what she said and Pauline said what she said afterwards was probably a fair strikeout of both statements, as opposed to taking one of those statements to court and winning. So, David, I think we're on the same page. I've got to leave it there, but thank you very much for your call. It's like Pitt Street Mall in this studio now. I've got 4 human beings and 1 dog. Like, seriously. Diane Coveney-Garland, what's happening on the news front?
Good morning. Glenn A. Baker, the music historian, has died, aged 74. Firefighters are at a recycling plant in Sydney's southwest, which has gone up in flames, and a smashing win for the Roosters overnight. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
It sure was. Thank you, Diane. Julie in Cairns, go right ahead.
Hey, Chris. I'm just following on from that last caller. When people come to Australia as either temporary, provisional or permanent visa applicant, They have to sign something called the Australian Values Statement. Now, it seems like they're signing it, but it's not being
enforced. It's not being policed at all.
Yeah. Because parts on each of those types of visa, it says that I understand that Australian society values respect for freedom and dignity of the individual, freedom of religion, freedom of speech and freedom of association, commitment to the rule of law, which means that all people are subject to the law and should obey it, parliamentary democracy, whereby our laws are determined by parliament selected by the people, etc., etc. And mainly it goes on about if you don't sign this, your visa can be refused or delayed.
Well, there are 14,000 people under a watch list for suspicion in this country, and I reckon 10,000 of those 14,000 would be visa holders. That'd be a good place to start.
And also, the other thing is the things here, this statement of values also says the English language as the national language and as an important and unifying element of Australian society.
You've done your homework.
I did. I even sent you this link on one of those contact things, but I don't think anybody's seen it yet.
That is interesting. And, you know, it's a little bit like the conversation I had yesterday with the former AFP superintendent, David Craig. There are laws in place, there are regulations in place, left, right and centre, but we just have a weak set of politicians who don't want to act on the laws.
Yes, and this is from the Home Affairs page in the government, in the Australian government.
Yeah, it's all very public, If you're not towing the line as a visa holder, you're not carrying out your end of the bargain, and we should be able to do something about it.
Yes, and it also goes towards your citizenship. So if you're still not towing the line with your visa, how can you become a citizen?
Yeah, good question, Julie. I'm glad you mentioned all of that, and thank you for doing that homework. Now, this is a little bit more normal for the studio, for the Castle of Common Sense. Diane's back in the newsroom. I've let the dog out, and it's just Alex Malley and myself. Alex, of course, is a best-selling author, CEO, university lecturer, mentor and disruptor. And he's elevated again today to talk about some of the big national affairs issues. A very good morning to you, Alex Malley.
How are you, Smithy?
Good. It was too busy in here for me. I'm used to pretending I'm not talking to many people, you see.
I've got a puppy coming up to me with a ball in his mouth, wanting me to throw it around the studio. It's insane.
Well, it does happen, you see.
Beautiful
You've seen
dog.
it happen. He's
Beautiful
a good man.
dog.
He's a good man, Tarko. I made mention at the start of the program of these 3 major gobsmacking stories about the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And I'll just narrow it down for people to get a focus on it. Earlier this week in Darwin, we've got people inside the NDIS being charged. Mm-hmm. Then 3 major stories today, a damning story about the so-called poster boy of the NDIS, James Davies, who's tried to siphon $700,000 off and live like a king in Bali. He's now one of the... well, scumbags that have got their nose in the trough. Then the Australian talks about these shonky providers coughing up golf and horse therapy and all sorts of things under a category that says miscellaneous. So they don't even have to say why they're getting $194 an hour to do this sort of stuff. And then the Australian Financial Review, from a Senate inquiry, they've discovered the top law enforcement officers say that violent organised crime gangs have now thoroughly infiltrated the NDIS. We need more than just investigators knocking on people's doors.
This is unbelievable. You know, if in a cricket team sundries was your highest score, there'd be a problem with the team. Yeah. Miscellaneous has gone nuts at the cost level. So, Chris, look, I know someone on NDIS and I know they deserve it.
Yep.
And I'm delighted that they've got the support. I think generally the Australian community sees merit when it's appropriately served.
Yes.
However, this has become a cost monolith.
Yeah.
And much of the policies we've seen in the recent months are attempts to raise funds to cut costs and save money in this area. So I think what we need to do here is to pause. We need to look at readjusting the way in which this is structured. We need to reprioritise the people that there are people who get NDIS that maybe aren't the priority that I know a person who has that priority. Chris, there are NDIS providers who sponsor sporting teams.
Yeah.
I mean, it indicates they're earning too much money.
Correct. They've got too much money to play with. And look, when you've got a system that allows you to take $200 an hour for something you don't have to specify, the system's stuffed.
It's stuffed. And you need a team of retired business people to actually review the whole process of how they go about their business.
Yes.
We need prioritising of the groups. We need cost frameworks. And the bottom line is lots of universities are producing nurses who are moving into the hospital system. Why not use trainee nurses to do some of this work?
Yeah.
At clinic,
point.
They need clinical training. There's a whole lot of smart ways we can deal with this.
Well, you're the accountant. Maybe we should appoint you to go in there and get the broom.
They could do a lot worse, let me tell you. They could do a lot worse.
I tell you what, this business about private healthcare is coming back to bite Anthony Albanese and the Treasurer on the backsides, because their own Labor Party health ministers in the states and the territories are now saying, what are you doing? You're taking away the rebate on private health insurance for the over 65s, and I've had 1,000 calls on this, by the way. You've decided to do that. What do you think it's going to do to our public hospital system, which is already under colossal strain? And you've got this new polling commissioned by Private Healthcare Australia underlining this, that almost 4 in 10 older Australians, as a result of this policy, say they're more likely to drop their private health cover if the changes go ahead.
Yeah, so this tells you about policy making on the run. The initial thought is, if we stop the rebate, we're going to save money. That's going to help us manage cost blowouts in areas like NDIS. But of course, the obvious reality is they're going to affect the public hospital system and the costs of that. Now, remember, this is the same target audience that created Australia as it is today.
Yep.
These are people that have worked all their life, paid taxes, asked for nothing, and certainly got nothing in return, and now let's nail them on the way out. This is totally inappropriate.
Intergenerational equity was how Jim Chalmers described it.
And of course, that's not going to happen. And now I call it the Wiltshire policy making, because even with negative gearing and capital gains tax, which impact the same cohort, they're now cutting and dicing areas because they hadn't thought through the policy.
Yeah.
So every time someone's asked a question about the policy, we'll look at that again because we hadn't considered that. So we've got policy on the run, we've got cost overruns. Any business, any country can't grow without revenue, without productivity. You can't cut costs and grow. Yeah. And that's what this looks like.
Well, I've had call after call ever since this was announced, and this has been 2 months in the making now, when it was first mooted. I've had call after call from people saying, I can't afford my health insurance now with the rebate. And these are the over 65s that have ailments. They're the ones who will go to the hospital because they're the ones with the ailments.
Our biggest issue is the ageing population, and as people stop generating income, we've got to rely on the young ones who are also being attacked by impaired policies.
Yeah, very true. One last one. This is quite extraordinary. I spoke with Dr. Emma Devaney yesterday, late in the program, about the future of Alzheimer's diagnosis, and she was talking about dementia as well. So there are a whole range of new blood tests they can do on people who show the first signs of Alzheimer's, and this will underline and measure how much they will be impacted by this disease, which is fantastic. And down the track, no doubt, you and I will be able to go in without any kind of indication that we're going to get Alzheimer's and say to our GP, I want an Alzheimer's test, please. So this is fantastic breakthrough. But moreover, we've now got this major study of more than 65,000 people and new research that says, and I can't even fathom how they would work this out, that depending on what sugar a pregnant woman ingests during pregnancy and how much a 2-year-old ingests, 0 to 2, will indicate whether you're going to get dementia or not.
This is really interesting. And these 65,000 people from the data they got was around the World War II when they were under rations and they couldn't have sugar, and they've analysed that set.
Right.
And they're a fifth less likely to get dementia.
And that is a staggering statistic, a fifth.
So when you consider that we are now moving into obesity as our favourite, reality in bodybuilding, obesity from sugar and other things, if you extrapolate it, that means that more and more people on these research, more and more people are going to have dementia.
Yeah, it is only correlation, it's not causation,
Sure.
but the correlation is enormous.
Yeah, but it also says, Chris, go back to basics, right? We know sugar's not good for you. We know it rusts your body. We know that you end up with diabetes if you have too much sugar. So, no brainer, let's have less sugar.
That's a very good thing you just said then. Rusts your body.
It does. That's what they talk about.
It's very doctor-like saying something like that.
You know I'm an all-rounder.
You're an all-rounder.
Listen to my intro. What haven't I done?
You're in everything.
Hey?
I find this staggering. When I first saw the headline, I said, how did they prove that?
I know.
How would they ever prove? But they have as good as... Look, science is rarely causated.
Yeah.
It's always correlated. But that's about as much on the side of causation as you're ever going to get.
Now, on research, can I just ask one thing of your audience? Can someone tell me how they've worked out in research that dogs are colourblind? This is an issue that's worried me for some time.
Has this been a water cooler discussion at your work?
It has, and
Right.
it's also been, why do people spend money on research to know whether dogs are colourblind? But how do we know?
How would you determine whether a dog is colourblind?
Exactly.
I'm sure there are tests you could do with objects and coloured cards.
Well, at that water cooler debate, with all my young ones at work, they all looked up all this stuff and at pace, and then they'd tell me, this is because why that? I said, I don't believe that. I don't think that's right. So if anyone knows in your audience...
Yeah, how do you prove that a dog is colourblind? This is your Trivial Pursuit question for the day, 13 12 69 for all you dog owners out there. Have you got a villain and a hero for us?
I've got a hero.
You've got a hero, go.
You spoke of him this morning, Glenn A. Baker.
Yes.
Lovely guy. Can I say, I got the chance to interview him 10 years ago.
Yep.
And for hours. And he was the quirkiest cat I ever met in my life. And he had all this stuff, his museum, he had stuff everywhere, under his feet, over his shoulder. We could hardly sit in the room. But what a fantastic energy and what a loss of knowledge that goes with him.
He would always be on a radio station somewhere, someday.
Oh, yeah, with that hat.
Yes. Fantastic, mate. Thank you very much for that. Good to have you
Do you want to know my villain?
Oh, you got a villain too?
Got a villain.
Yeah.
The Cowboys. Rugby league team.
Oh, yes.
That's a disgrace. They should get their pay docked. You and I could play and they could score less than 82 points.
No, I don't think that would be the case.
Well, that's probably right.
I'd last 1
right.
minute. But that was an astonishing scoreline. They had every chance at half-time to go on and hit 100.
I know. And worse still, it's the Roosters. You know how we feel about that.
The Roosters. Oh, bad luck. Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
Good on you. Alex Malley, CEO, best-selling author, lecturer, mentor, disruptor, doctor sometimes, and maybe they should throw him into the NDIS as well. Let's have a look at the power sources we generated at 8:30 this morning. 8:30, just on the edge of the peak hour at breakfast. Batteries were giving us just 2%. Gas, 10, hydro 11, solar 19, wind 5%. Not a very windy day around the nation, but 53% was being supplied by coal. A couple of days ago, you may remember this, we were on our tour of Europe at the time, but we were talking about it on the tour bus, how Australia and India had finalised an agreement about exporting uranium to India for peaceful nuclear energy purposes, and we were all discovering, how dare we even think about that when we won't even use it ourselves? But now we know why, because India has announced this week they are rapidly expanding their nuclear industry. One of the world's largest uranium producers, Australia, we're going to play a role in all of this, but how about we stop not mentioning the N-word and have a discussion about how we could benefit with baseload power that doesn't emit CO2 as well? Why does it just have to be India?
Good morning.
Good to have you with us this Friday morning. How about we go straight to the open line? Simon, go ahead.
Morning, Chris. I brought my mother to Grandparents' Day at St Ida's Primary School in Brisbane. Geez, it's been wonderful for both the grandkids and the grandparents who are here now having a cup of coffee and cake. And I think the Catholic system do a wonderful job here in this state.
How good is that? We have a Grandparents' Day where my younger kids go to school, and I don't know who gets the most thrill out of it, the kids or the grandparents.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, the principal was saying it's the biggest day attendance-wise of the year. So
brilliant.
Wonderful. I just wanted to share that.
I'm glad you did, and if you ever get a chance as a grandparent to go along, make sure you do, because they are terrific days, well organised. You know, it's not a boring event at all. There are not endless speeches. It's not one of those, school assembly events. And you just get to do activities with your grandkids that they wouldn't normally have a chance to do.
Yeah, it's wonderful. They're full of energy now.
What was the cuppa like?
Not too bad. No, sorry, I haven't had one yet. Mum's had one. I'm just about to have one.
Okay. Enjoy it, Simon. Thank you very much for your call. Well, the conversation around women's rights continues to raise some of the biggest questions in society, from women's spaces and fairness to inclusion and where the boundaries are. We've spoken before to Sally Grover and her legal battle surrounding the Giggle versus Tickle case, one that became a major part of a national conversation around women-only spaces, discrimination and the law. That is the definition of a woman. Now another woman, Noam Whitney, is facing her own legal challenge after a dispute involving her women-only pole dancing studio raised similar concerns a week or so ago. We are seeing clear parallels between the experiences of Sally Grover, founder of Giggle, and Noam Whitney, the owner of Queens of Pole and Dance. They're joining us together this morning to unpack their experiences and have the wider conversation about where we're going with women's rights. Sal, Noam, thank you so much for your company.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Now, what's going on here? You're both from the Gold Coast, so the Goldie has become the epicentre for an international definition of what a woman is. Quite extraordinary.
It's quite amazing, considering on the Gold Coast, I mean, we're such a beach surf culture, there's really no hiding who's a man and who's a woman here, that's for sure.
That's so true. So, Noam, you would have been well aware of Sally Grover and her case.
I had been tracking it, yes, not in full extent like I have been now, but I was trying to keep up with all the little updates as they progressed along, because I knew that there was a chance that it could also impact me and my business.
Oh, you knew that before it became an issue?
Not really. I didn't think it would be obviously I'm a women's only space, and I thought that was enough advertising to safeguard me from the situation. But there was, I guess, part of me way back in the back of my brain that was, aware that maybe this could actually impact me as well.
So, Noam, just briefly detail how a transgender woman, a biological man, upset the apple cart at the Queens of Pole and Dance.
Well, they came along to a free trial class, 30-minute, new member or new community to our space. So they've never done pole before. They've never come into our studio before. They came along to our session, and halfway through the session openly disclosed that they identified as a woman, which then came very visibly uncertain with the other women in the class. And then a month later tried to return and was informed that we were unable to accommodate.
And the reaction from your women in the class, how did they react to a man, gripping onto a pole the way a man would with his own separate genitalia?
Well, the instructor at the time who was running the class did say to me that the other members became very visibly uncertain in the class. There was a mother and daughter team in there who started to, try and make their pants longer and kind of went into a bit of a recluse almost. And then following on from that, we had no communication from any of those attendees, and we normally have a very high success conversion rate of those sessions.
Do you think, and I've thought this from the moment I heard your story, do you think this was an intentional effort to make a point?
Unfortunately, yes, I do agree. There are multiple studios, well, now to my knowledge, all studios across the Gold Coast and Queensland, in fact, that are open to women and women identifying or even all gender spaces. And then, so in this instance, the fact that this person has come to my studio, it does seem like a very targeted incident.
It sounds similar, Sally, to what you have been through. I would have thought that in both instances, this was a case of trying it on to create an issue out of nothing to make a point.
Well, I think that that's just the realm of this that we're getting into now, is that because obviously in Australia you have all human rights commissions captured by gender ideology, the government, the courts. So there seems to be this opportunity for men who claim to be women to go into women-only spaces, and when we say no, use all of these devices they have at their disposal against us.
Yeah.
This is one of the big points that I've been making for such a long time, is that women don't have any of this institutional power. We don't have anyone to turn to. I recently was fortunate enough to finally have a meeting with Senator Katie Gallagher, who is the Federal Minister for Women. And the point I wanted to make with her is, where are we supposed to go for help? Because we don't have anyone on our side. We're constantly told that this group of people is the most marginalised, vulnerable group in society, but they've got everyone on side. What we are asking for is just to be able to have women-only spaces. You can have your other spaces. You can have women plus men who claim to be women's spaces, men-only spaces. You can have trans-only spaces if you want. We're just wanting to be part of that equation of having women-only spaces. And if they don't allow us to have them, we are the ones being marginalised and discriminated against.
When you heard of Gnomes' experience, did you reach out to her?
Well, I'll tell the story. Gnomes sent an email. I was just happened to be sitting there when it arrived, and I saw just sort of the preview of the email, and I was like, I think I should read this. And I read it and said, call me straight away. And we spoke and realised that we actually live very close to each other. And it was just, okay, all systems go. Like, if you are willing to fight this is an important thing to fight, because, I think that there have been a lot of women in Australia just sort of seeing this out of the corner of their eye and thinking that, oh, it won't happen to me, or, oh, she must have done something wrong to deserve this. And no, I haven't. I wanted to run a women-only online platform. Anything that's exclusively for women is vulnerable, and we need every woman to stand up and say, no, it's not about hate, it's not about exclusion, it's about including women in society who want women-only spaces. That's all we're saying. It shouldn't be controversial at all.
It's not. Gnomes, after the complaint was made and the matter moved towards the Queensland Civil and Administrative Tribunal, that must have been very confronting. But how far are you prepared to go now with this? Having spoken to Sally, having shared stories and the process she has been through, how far are you prepared to go?
I'm willing to go as far as I need to go to try and make legislation change, just so we've got these women's only spaces.
So could that mean another level of appeal in another court?
Unfortunately, yes. I fear that might be where we end up, definitely.
And Sally Grover's input into all of this, has this emboldened you to carry on?
Look, having someone that has lived experiences is definitely helping me. I feel for Sal being, 4 years ago when she started her fight, not having the support that I've been blessed to have this far.
Yeah.
And also kind of a guide to see where this could potentially go and what barriers we're up against along the way.
Yeah, she broke the ground for you. What's been the reaction now that this story has travelled far and wide and people on the Gold Coast in particular are across it? What's been the reaction from the general public?
Look, it's been a bit mixed, to be honest, but we're focusing on the ones that are seeing the value that female-only spaces have for communities like our very own. It's not just pole dancing, as we've seen. It's, online apps, it's community groups, it's, all those kind of things that are already out there. So we're focusing on those that are really supporting and very pro-women spaces.
So you've been bucketed as well. Some people have been very brutal in their summation of this case.
Definitely. We're hosting a pole dancing competition this weekend that has been almost boycotted completely by particular communities, and a lot of our sponsors and competitors had to remove themselves from the event from fear of association.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that this is actually one of the biggest points, and it's just so infuriating. I've been in this fight now for 6.5 years. And again, we're hearing from politicians, from media constantly, this group is just so vulnerable. No, they're not. You say no to them, they take you to court, they send you threats, they try and destroy your business. Just recently, there were men in the street holding signs with death threats towards me, naming me, wanting me put in a men's prison. This is the worst of male behavior. It's important for everyone to understand that we are very aware that good men don't try to go into women-only spaces. Women-only spaces don't exist for those men. It wouldn't even occur to a good man to go into a woman-only space. They're not the problem. The moment you're dealing with a man who is determined to go into a woman-only space, you're dealing with somebody who is going to ignore women's boundaries.
So you're both facing these aggressive activists, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. And so there needs to be a wider conversation about how these activists are treating women and how unacceptable it is that we have to deal with threats and, again, have nowhere to go to report them. We don't have any human rights commissions on our side that we can go and say, hey, we're getting threats here. This is scary. We are completely on our own navigating this. And sometimes, it is. It's really, really scary.
Gnomes, I get the feeling that you're steeled for a fight.
I am, definitely.
That's good to hear. That's fantastic. And I'll let you get together, no doubt, again, and as you fight the good fight together. Sal, Gnomes, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having us.
Good on you. Sally Grover, founder of Giggle, Gnomes, Whitney, owner of Queens of Pole and Dance. Can you believe we're having a discussion in this country about what is a woman? The politicians in Australia need to wake up to themselves and talk common sense in this area and stop being inflicted by ideology and activists. We've got a new word to get our heads across, a word that I must admit I have heard, but I never really understood what it meant. The word Riz has officially made it into the dictionary. Riz, R-I-Z-Z. And I think that proves the dictionary is getting a little bit too relaxed. Basically, if you can make someone laugh, hold a conversation or win them over, apparently you've got Riz. You've got Riz. Every generation has its words, but some of them make you stop and think, really? That's an official word now? Riz? Before Riz had a name, there was something called old school charm. Before dating apps, before the technology buzz, people had to do it the old-fashioned way. You had to walk up to someone at a dance and ask them to go out with you face to face. You had to call their house, ask their parents whether you could take their daughter out. That's what I did. And you'd have to find the courage to introduce yourself. All of that has gone by the wayside. They just get online now. Riz. Have you ever heard the word Riz before? Maybe I'm just so old that I haven't been across the language of the... I've got kids, though. I've got 4 kids. They don't use Riz. Who uses Riz? Can't be a word. We've got to protest somehow. Let's go to the open line. Let's start again. 13 12 69. There's no radio station that starts with 1 2 on their open line. How did I get that wrong? Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris. How are you?
I'm well. Can I ask you a question without notice? Have you ever heard of the word Riz?
Never.
Riz.
I use all the Aussie slang, I can assure you.
That's not Aussie. That's not even... I don't know what that is slang. It's obviously slang of the very young generation. You've got a little bit of Riz. It's actually a term of endearment by the sound of it, but I can't imagine myself ever using it. Go ahead, Joe. You didn't want to talk about Riz.
Look, there's two things I want to be concerned about. The Albanese government, with this situation with the young people that are home buyers, right, probably bought their houses during the time when there was 2% interest rates, 1.9, 2.3. And they were assessed as affordable at the time. And when I've been in finance before, when they assess the loan, they allow a 2% difference. So in other words, when they assess the loan, if it's 2%, they assess the affordability of the client on 4%.
Right, okay. That makes sense.
These people now have gone to 6%, and they can't afford the loans, the repayments due to the rising costs of food, electricity, fuel, everything else. And not falling in line with that is their income increase. So what happens when they call the banks up to get a bit of relief? The banks don't do anything. They just keep putting reports on their credit report that they are missing payments. And the only other option that person has is to apply for hardship, which means that goes on the credit file for 12 months. And if they try and refinance elsewhere at a better rate, nobody will accept the loan.
Right.
The banks protect themselves with this late reporting history and this hardship. Now, once you miss a payment on your home loan that gets reported as missed, you are locked in for 2 years. You can't go anywhere else.
Uh-huh.
This is where the law stinks. Now, the Albanese government has got no awareness of any of this. The finance minister has no awareness.
Why do you say that they wouldn't know that?
Because they're not doing anything about it.
That doesn't mean they don't know about it. But anyway, what should they be doing about it?
Well, the legislation should change, and these late payment history, once the loan's been paid 3 months after consistently, it should be removed off the credit report.
Yeah.
They're free to move on.
Yeah.
If they want to. But no, they're locked into 2 years. And we have about 30 million credit files in Australia who are all run by Equifax, an American-owned company. They are impossible to deal with. If you've got an issue, you ring up, you're speaking to somebody on the other side of the world that hasn't got access to anything except your credit report. There's nobody you can speak to complain about the issue or get the situation fixed.
Yeah.
It's a very, very bad issue at the moment.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it is. But on top of that, we've just crushed the housing industry senseless, haven't we? There are now signs that there are drops of about 15% in the June quarter for new mortgage applications. The National Australia Bank revealed this overnight. New mortgage applications, a fall of 15% in the June quarter. That's a 15% drop in a young couple's aspirations in life.
Absolutely. And this is just going to get deeper and deeper unless we get this government out and get somebody in that knows what they're doing.
All right. Good on you, Joe. Thank you very much for your call. I want to get back to this issue about women's rights. We've spoken to Sal Grover, Nomes Whitney. I want to turn to another major legal development in this area. The New South Wales Supreme Court has dismissed an appeal from Kirralie Smith and her organisation Binary Australia, upholding a finding that social media posts targeting two transgender women involved in community football amounted to unlawful vilification. Now, the transgender women, biological men, were playing in a female competition, which, as you may know, I find abhorrent. Kirralie Smith has strongly rejected the ruling from the New South Wales Supreme Court, saying the case raises bigger questions around women's sport, freedom of expression, and whether women feel able to speak openly about these issues. She is the leader of Binary Australia and on the line right now. Kirralie, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
I don't know how many times I've spoken about this case over the years, but I always thought you would be victorious because I thought at least, you know, learned members of the bench would understand what freedom of expression and how important that is, and also the fact that women need to be protected. But obviously not.
Oh, look, it's quite bewildering, Chris. From the beginning, it's now 3.5 years. The social media posts, I can say, I can't name the players. I don't need to name the players because we're talking about a policy here. But we did use examples of policy failure that came from the public domain. So these were images and screenshots from the football associations themselves. We simply reshared them and asked, why are men in women's sport? We talked about the consequences of men in women's sport. And
they have been injurious consequences, haven't there?
There's been terrible consequences, and it's been really difficult, and it's been really complicated because not only have I, been penalised and ordered to pay $95,000 in damages to men, I've been ordered to, post a public confession on every single, social media page that I am involved with. Ugh. But it's also been now weaponised by sporting organisations to say to their players, to their coaches, to parents, do not use examples, do not oppose this policy, and if you do, you will also be taken to court under the Anti-Discrimination Act that protects men who wish they were women more than women themselves.
It's just outrageous, the fact that one deserves more priority and credence than the other. At the end of the day, you can respect someone who wants to be a woman but is a man. That's fine. But there are certain things that cross the line. And sport in particular, where you've got men who've gone through the advantages of testosterone during puberty, are playing in women's sport. It's an outrage.
It is an outrage, and we've had male and female divisions for a reason, because there are advantages for males in female sport. And women don't consent, Chris, either. We hear so much, this buzzword consent. Where's the consent? Women need to have the opportunity to play female-only sport. They can play mixed sport if they consent to playing with men, but they need a place in Australia, not just on the sporting field, but in the change room, Chris. Yeah. They can feel safe and dignified and have a fair playing field. And basically, that right has been erased in Australia, and people like Sal Grover and Gnomes and myself and Jasmine Sussex and others are fighting this in the courts, but we're not winning because bad laws that defy nature and defy reality are being upheld.
Yeah, that is the stumbling block, and it should not be the stumbling block. It wouldn't be if it weren't for Julia Gillard, who made that ruling. So, what about you now? You've got a big fine to pay. You could take it further, could you not? Or what are you going to do?
We can take it further, and I believe we're filing our intent to appeal today. So that's our next step. I don't accept the vilification charges. I don't accept that those damages are reasonable or realistic. And I think that women, not just women, all people in Australia should have the right, not just to free speech, but to truth speech, Chris.
Yeah.
Everything I've said is true, can be backed by evidence, is evidenced by reality, and we have to challenge these bad laws.
Well done. Well said. Keep fighting. 3 women in the space of a half an hour on this program who should be admired for your fight and courage. Thank you, Kirralie.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Okay, Leader of Binary Australia, Kirralie Smith. Can you believe that our courts are that screwed up? That they're that twisted? That they've got to go and back men who intimidate young girls on the football field, cause them injury, and then we've got a football association that allows that to go on. They should be damned as well. Diane, what's happening?
Thanks, Chris. A driver is on the run after hitting 2 cars and crashing through a fence in Sydney's northwest. Dozens of people are missing, feared dead, after an explosion in a mine in Pakistan. And round 22 of the NRL will continue tonight. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
Good on you. Thank you for that. We're going to get to the Oz Trucker in just a short moment. Lots to talk about with Mike Williams. But I want to get back to Riz. I'm trying to work out the origins of Riz. I think Max has got it right. He sent me an email. He said, hey, mate, the word Riz shouldn't be in the dictionary as it is only a shortened word for charisma. That makes sense? Okay, so I've got the origin under control. But if we put in the dictionary all the things that we shortened, the dictionary would be twice as big as what it is. Riz is just a shortened word. Max, you're dead right. Why are we putting shortened words in when you've got a word like charisma that can be used? And if someone wants to use the word Riz, I'm sorry, that's slang. Do we put endless slang words in the dictionary now? I don't get it. Nathan writes, as a 42-year-old, I've never used the word Riz, and I don't plan on it either. Leanne says, Chris, I'm 32, love the show, and I've never used the word Riz before. I got divorced from my husband 3 years ago and recently went on my first date. The guy I was seeing told me how much Riz I had because I bought the first round. Oh, well, hey, that might teach you something about going anywhere near him if he's getting you to buy the first round. Let's just say I think dating might be done for me. Yeah. Whatever happened to the old-fashioned thing? The men bought the drinks. Another one here, Jeanette. Riz is such a ridiculous word to be considered in the dictionary. My kids use it all the time. I've got Riz, they'll say. They're only 6 and 12, and I'm bloody hoping they're not actually using this so-called skill at those big, ripe ages. Riz. It's just a shortened word for charisma, so how does it get in the dictionary? I could come up with a whole heap of shortened words that I use that shouldn't be anywhere near the dictionary. I need some help with this word. This has upset me today. The Oz Trucker is on the line, Trucking Industry Hall of Famer and host of the podcast On the Road. Mike Williams, welcome to the Super Radio Network.
Thanks for having me, mate. How are you going?
I'm doing very well. I bet your truckie mates don't use the word Riz.
No, they use other words.
Don't go there. That's for a separate dictionary.
They're very descriptive, mate. There's no doubt or confusion about what they mean.
Very true. All right. There was no confusion about what Dr. Anthony Fauci was in that Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing yesterday because he blurted out all the same responses each and every time, even when he was asked, what colour is your tie? What's the colour of the carpet in this room? He said, I'm taking the fifth. So he just didn't... And I think, and no doubt you've either saw it live or saw some of it, I think he actually did himself a great disservice because it showed how arrogant he was and how much... I think it showed that he was unable to defend himself, which made what we went through during COVID even more hurtful.
Mate, I would dearly love to see this man get his comeuppance and everyone who support him 111 times. On the advice of counsel, I'm not going to comment. I was just gobsmacked, and when it came to what colour tie you're wearing, what colour's the carpet in front of you, what day of the week is it? I mean, they're objective facts. You can't... What is the point of saying I'm not answering that? As you say, it just shows how arrogant the man was.
Let's play a few things for you to give you some cues as to how to address this issue, because you have been, right from the middle of COVID, you have been very critical of the rules and regulations we all faced, some of which were instigated by this very person and followed and replicated around the world, like by the Morrison government. Senator Rick Scott weighed in during this hearing yesterday, sharing his thoughts on the Fauci hearing. Take a listen.
Dr. Fauci, I want to close with this. Here's how you impacted my family and people close to me. I have daughters with children. You can't imagine the questions they had around vaccines for their kids and themselves, and the pressure, the unbelievable pressure to make the right decision for their health. I can tell you pregnant women who worked with me were so scared because every time they went to the doctor, they were told something different about taking the vaccine. And you caused this. Imagine being a mom trying to protect their kids, or an expectant mother trying to figure out what to do. Every 3 weeks, a doctor tells you a new set of guidance on a vaccine. The haphazard information you released and pushed on the American people with little research is appalling, and why there's so much distrust in our institutions today. That trust is crucial to public health, and you, more than any person or event in my lifetime, have destroyed that trust for millions of Americans. You lied to hundreds of millions of people amid the worst public health crisis in a century. You failed to follow your own guidance. You forced people to watch their loved ones die alone over the phone. It's disgusting. You destroyed the federal government's credibility when it comes to public health. We have entire generations of Americans who, rightfully so, do not trust our institution to keep people safe because of you. This has destroyed decades of progress and lifetimes of work because you wanted to fuel your own ego and be the center of attention.
And you wonder why, Mike Williams, parents are not getting their kids vaccinated now. It all stems from what we were told, promised, sold during COVID, and they didn't come true.
Well, the trust level for the health authorities now in this country, I think, is just about zero. I know. For me personally, I spoke out about it right from the start. There were others, such as yourself, who were reporting what was said, and I mean, I don't hold anyone who was commenting like yourself, for example, with the information that you had to account for it. But I certainly hold those people who knew much better. I certainly hold the doctors in our health system accountable for what they said. There were very few who spoke out about it. And you and I both know of the ones that did, that were ultimately paid the price. And that was a very chilling effect on the rest of the community in the health sector. And the reality of it was, you only needed to have a look at what was going on. That cruise ship, for example, was a perfect test tube for what was going on with COVID. And it was just a bad case of the flu. We know that now. I cannot believe... The thing that disgusted me most, and still does, about the whole thing was that we were locked away. Our rights were stripped from us one after another, just 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah. We need to get this amount of herd immunity.
And if you take the jab, you can't spread COVID-19, and all that sort of stuff that proved to be false.
Yeah, the lack of logic that was involved in the way that some of the decisions were made, and the willingness of some of the politicians, Andrews, for example, but they were all as bad as each other. They were all complicit, every single one of them. And no one had the guts, apart from very few like Craig Kelly, for example, and Malcolm Roberts, etc., had the intestinal fortitude to stand up and be counted. I mean, I had a big discussion with the boss of the TWU at the time, talking about constructed dismissal. And he agreed that having people being forced to have the jab in the trucking industry was constructed dismissal. And any other time the union would have been all over it and fighting about it, but yet they just folded their umbrellas and went home. I couldn't believe it.
You mentioned Craig Kelly. He also weighed in on the Fauci testimony yesterday.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Posting on X about his own experiences during the pandemic. And Kelly wrote this: Fauci admitted in his own diary that COVID was nothing more than the flu. I wonder if I'll now get an apology from the ABC for their attacks upon me telling the truth, that the death rate from COVID was being widely exaggerated. Well, the same applies to Channel 9, because they got stuck into Craig Kelly there too.
Well, Ali Langdon was a disgrace at the time. She was so arrogant, and the way she treated Craig, beyond description. In fact, all these people that got up and did these ads, to me, I don't know, mate, it just makes me so angry. I had to have 2 jabs, or I would have had to have stopped working, and I couldn't afford to say no.
No.
And, otherwise, at 60 years of age, I'd have been back to where I was in my 20s.
Yeah, at the time I was on radio and television, and I was interviewing so-called eminent immunologists on a nightly and weekend basis, like regularly, and they were convinced that this was the superb jab that everyone had to have. They were even bagging ivermectin, which we've now found out is a treatment that should have been used and could have been used instead of getting the jab. But the media was down on ivermectin. Everyone seemed to be treating ivermectin, and they called it a horse parasite medicine. Yes, it's used for that, but so are many, many other drugs that humans take that are effective. But that was bagged endlessly. We had doctors who still can't work to this very day who used ivermectin on some of their patients effectively, and they still can't operate. They still can't go back to work.
No, I know. And to me, it just makes your mind boggle when you think of the amount of pressure that was put on people to say or do nothing. At least if you couldn't do anything positive, you were told to shut up.
Yeah.
And we all got it. I certainly got it. How I never got barred from social media is beyond me, because I used to do A Minute with Mick then.
Yeah.
And there are a few favourites like me wearing a full-face gas mask, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you're really serious about the virus, this is what you need to wear.
Yes.
You know, and this utter bullshit with having to sit down in a restaurant. I mean, for God's sake. And by the way, if you're not home by 8 o'clock, geez, that virus is pretty smart.
Yes,
exactly. You know, I mean, God.
It has a watch on its wrist.
Made my head explode, mate. Really.
Yeah, there were 3 women who, through the COVID-19 pandemic, were very, very vocal on American media, questioning Fauci's rules and regulations. They were the former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, who's now, she was the former National Intelligence Director, now Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Also, Fox commentator Tommy Loren and broadcaster Megyn Kelly. All 3 women have jumped on social media overnight after witnessing what Anthony Fauci did during that hearing, and have all shared their reaction to the Senate hearing. I'll play them in that order. Have a listen to what they've said.
The COVID pandemic caused tremendous hardship and pain for millions of our fellow Americans and countless people around the world. And after years of lies and censorship and cover-ups, the American people deserve transparency, truth, and accountability. The tactics that were used to hide the truth are straight from the deep state playbook. Politicized, self-serving leaders like Dr. Fauci covered up their own wrongdoing and abuses of power, manipulated intelligence, lied to Congress, and undermined a duly elected president by restricting his access to the vital facts he needed to keep the country safe. It's time you know the truth.
Well. It only took 6 years and, of course, Dr. Tony Fauci's diary to convince hopefully everybody that COVID was a scam from the very start. Some of us called this out in 2020, but for those that are a little late to the game, better late than never. It was a scam from the start. So at least we've caught on now, and while we're probably never going to get an apology, we'll probably never see anybody go to jail for what they did to us, at least, at the very least, may we have learned our lesson and never be dumb enough to fall for it again.
That's right. Dr. Fauci, who's been given a full presidential pardon, pleaded the Fifth on the grounds that he does not want to incriminate himself, refusing to answer any, and we do mean any, questions. It happened over and over and over. Looking for any tiny modicum of responsibility to be taken by this man. This is the man, by his own admission, who got the schools closed across the country and specifically patted himself on the back for doing it in New York and LA, 2 of our biggest cities. This is the man you have to blame. This is the man who strong-armed the CDC into mandating vaccines, mandating masks, and so on. This is the guy.
And I got to say, Mike Williams, the reason that saying he took the Fifth is BS as well is because he has got a eternal pardon.
Yeah.
He's got an eternal pardon from Biden, so he can't incriminate himself. He just took the Fifth because he couldn't answer the questions.
Well, he doesn't want to embarrass himself. I did hear one legal argument this morning that suggests that one of the reasons he took the Fifth because the pardon is only a federal pardon, and there are plenty of state prosecutors who might be ready to have a crack at him.
Right.
And that's the logic behind it, apparently. Having said that, though, refusing to answer the questions in the Congress, I'm no lawyer. I'm certainly no American lawyer or anything like that. But my understanding was, and certainly this is Craig Kelly's understanding too, I believe, that because he's been granted that pardon, and he's talking in the Congress, and he must answer their questions or he's in contempt of the Congress, which is a separate offence altogether. So, I mean, watch this space. Who knows? But I would bet any part of my anatomy that this guy won't go down. And just like all the rest of them, just like Andrews and all the other state leaders and federal leaders in this country, they've slugged up under their rock with their pensions and things like that. after the damage they've done to this country. It makes me so bloody angry, mate. It really does.
All right. To a lesser degree, the other story I wanted to cover with you was the fact that the excise is back on our petrol from Monday morning. We need to be careful.
Just quickly, mate. It's going to go up, and it's going to be more than 20 cents. Diesel up here, I'm at Halfway Creek at the moment. Diesel here is $2.50 nearly at Halfway Creek up in the Northern Rivers. It's going to go up on Sunday. Fill your cars up over the weekend and save whatever few dollars you can. But it just goes to show that all our government's capable of doing is some Band-Aids. The transport industry is going to suffer. You wait Monday morning, mate, the excrement's going to hit the oscillating device and it is just going to be all over. It's going to be all on again. And, you know, Buddy Albo's been exposed with the rest of his ministers for the inept government they now operate. We've got to put up with another couple of years of this, mate.
You have a very clever way with words, Mike Williams. Great to have you on the program. Thank you for venting very well.
You behave yourself, old mate, and hope everyone has a good weekend. Fill your cars up. I'll catch you next week, mate.
Good on you. Trucking Industry Hall of Famer Mike Williams. John has phoned through on the open line, wants to talk about Daniel Duggan. This was the Marine Corps officer who has been taken back to the United States. He became a fighter and instructor pilot, and he was arrested in 2022 in Orange for conspiracy to defraud the US by conspiring to unlawfully export defence services to China. John, your comments?
Yeah, good morning, Chris. Well, I did a Google yesterday, and that said he had his appeal to the judge has been squashed. But
yes,
apparently the Attorney General has to sign a certificate to allow him to go.
Right, so he hasn't physically been extradited, but I do know that his appeal against the extradition has been a failure.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. Yeah, but he's been in consultative confinement since 2022.
Yeah.
When he was arrested in Orange in a shopping centre car park.
Yeah, the United States don't take too kindly to people who share secrets.
Yeah, but now he's an Australian citizen, and the government should do something about...
Well, I think that window has closed.
Is it?
Yeah, that window has closed. That appeal, as soon as that appeal was denied, I think that's the end of the story for him, and he's going to have to face the music in the US. But, John, let me have a look and we'll see if we can get an update from the Attorney General's office who are handling this now, because it's just a matter of logistics to get him on a plane and send him back to the US. He denies the charges, by the way. Well, Albo's phone has been ringing off the hook. Have you heard about this? It's been ringing off the hook because of approaches from world leaders, and not for the reasons you might think.
Hello, Prime Minister Albo speaking. Yeah, how can I help you?
Hello, it's Mark Carney here, the Prime Minister of Canada. How you doing? I just want to, wish you all the best for your results, but Cripey, you need to back off them a little bit. It's not all about winning. You gotta back off and give other people a chance. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes, I think I do. Yes. Hang on a minute. Hello, yes. How are you? How are you, Prime Minister? It's Bob Catter here from the deep north. Listen, what about our numbers? Aren't they unbelievable? You should. I can't believe I'm saying this. You should be very proud of yourself. It's actually very good. It's not often I'm given to praise you, but anyway, as long as you help me get rid of those goddamn crocodiles, I'll continue to praise you. I'll continue to praise you. Hello?
Yes, Prime Minister, it's King Charles.
Oh, yes. The phone's very busy today. Sorry, King. How can I help you?
I just wanted you to know that it's a bit of a runaway over here. You've got to take it easy on us. We've got to make sure that Britain is still okay. Can you back off?
Yes, I think so. Okay, well, thank you, King. Hello, can I help you?
Oh, hello. It's the other Prime Minister, Andy Burnham from Manchester. Listen, I just want you to take it easy on us a little bit, just before the King rings, because he said he was going to call you, and I thought I'd get in before he called, just to jump the gun a bit.
Oh, no, he's already rung. I just hung up from him. Oh, I knew he'd do that. I wanted to contact you first. Listen, just go easy on us, will you? We'll try, but whatever that means. Hello?
It's Gina Reinhardt here. Listen, we're getting a bit of blowback, Albo, about the numbers being too high, and with my funding and everything, it's a bit awkward.
Oh, okay. Anything for you, Mr. Reinhardt? Gina, who was that? Please explain. Oh, hello.
Hey, it's Uncle Danny here. Listen, what's going on down there? Do you understand? You got to take it easy. You got to back off.
Oh, hi, Uncle Donny. Take it easy on me, will you? Because you're about the third or fourth caller I've had today telling me to back down from I'm not sure.
We can't be part of it. We'd like to, but we won't. It's just something we haven't had to do for a long time, 250 years, I believe. But anyway, you're causing a lot of trouble. You're making waves. You better back off. Get your numbers down real fast.
Oh, what was that about?
Well, Prime Minister, that was all about them trying to get us to stop winning medals at the Commonwealth Games.
Oh, I thought they were all trying to get me to reduce my immigration numbers here in Australia.
No, they were trying to tell you to stop winning so many medals at the Commonwealth Games.
What's the Commonwealth Games?
Good question, PM. Why don't you go and ask your good mate Dan Andrews?
Thank you, Moxo. You had me stumped there. I didn't know what the numbers were, but you're right. Yes, we've dominated the Commonwealth Games and more than we ever have before, which is a real problem. I tell you what, you're sending in lots of emails today on this word Riz. Lots of them. Matt writes, Kriz, R-I-Z-Z, Tufa. I actually think that's a pretty good name for you, mate. That voice is as smooth as whiskey. Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Chris Rourke says, Riz. Spring is here. The grass is Riz. I wonder where all the birdies is. What? Chris Rourke, you are a funny man, as you were in Europe. One here from Ken. Gen Z is obsessed with shortening words. Apparently even perfect was too long. So now we have perf. They don't use that, do they? Oh, that's perf. Perfect is only 2 syllables. Ken says it's also in the book. Perf. At this rate, we'll just be communicating in grunts by 2030. Bryce in Tuncurry, speak to me.
G'day, Chris. How you going?
Good, thank you.
Mate, actually, it's just stole my thunder. I was just going to mention the spring is sprung, the grass is riz. I wonder where the birdies is.
Smart minds think alike. Thank you, Bryce. Can you believe that we've actually got an entry that shortens charisma into riz and we've got to treat it as a word?
It's amazing, isn't it? And that's from my high school days, and I believe it was attributed to Ogden Nash. But I'm not sure if that... I think I've done a little bit of research, and it says that it might be just an anonymous. But I always remember that when you said Riz, that was my instant memory.
Right, Bryce. Okay, thank you very much for that. Tracy writes in an email, Chris, my high school students use it all the time. The theory around its use is because kids couldn't spell or sound it out. They can't spell charisma. Tracy, what are you doing to them? Get them spelling. Stu says, can we bring back the simple nice bloke? Much easier, much less embarrassing. And I'd like to be called that than a man with riz. It sounds derogatory, doesn't it? You got riz. Sorry, I'll take some medicine for it. Oh, dear. I was going to talk with Mike Williams about this story that I saw this morning about cars, but we ran out of time. But I'll tell you about it anyway. BMW is planning to cut 8,000 jobs in Germany. And you know why? Because of the Chinese EV flood. They're going everywhere, not just in Australia. Chinese EVs are being imported from just about every European country. And you're seeing this on the road, aren't you? Like, I don't know what the ratio is now, but the ratio is only going to get bigger, and we're going to be flooded mostly with Chinese cars because they're cheaper. They've got slave labour. Things can be done in the car industry in China that could never be done in a Western country. So Europe's biggest car makers are under pressure from the cheaper Chinese competitors. And this expensive transition to electric vehicles. It's expensive for the likes of BMW to start making electric vehicles. It's not for the Chinese. But the Munich-based company has launched a voluntary redundancy program across Europe, targeting its administration and development divisions. Now, when you're targeting a development division in a car manufacturing firm, that says to me that you don't have too many aspirations about the future because you're not developing new models or designs. BMW says the move is part of adapting to major changes in the industry, including new technology, shifting markets, geopolitical uncertainty and challenges in China. The cuts come as Germany's automotive giants struggle to compete with Chinese electric vehicle makers. Volkswagen, listen to this, has already announced plans for up to 100,000 job cuts. 100,000. Porsche is also restructuring, with thousands of positions expected to go over the coming years. And you could bet that the ripple effects could be felt here in Australia, not by manufacturing. We don't manufacture cars anymore. But you'll see it on the road. You'll see traditional car makers move out of the country. Fiat has moved out of Australia. So if you have to get a Fiat, you've got to import a Fiat, and you probably struggle to find a Fiat yard. It is really reshaping global auto industries. And then you've had this problem with oil in the Hormuz Strait because of the war between Iran and the United States. And this has just made people think, I don't want to be dependent on petrol anymore. And so there's been this spike in the purchase of electric vehicles when, electric vehicles, unless you're just using them around a city, they are impractical in terms of a country as wide and as vast as Australia. They're impractical, which is why EVs have dominated the market. Hybrids have dominated the market instead of EVs. Anyway, it's changing by the week.
Good afternoon.
It's changing by the week, and no doubt it'll change even further. Another email here from Alan. I believe we should name and shame the federal judges who are making these decisions. Now, no doubt Alan is talking about the decisions against Kirralie Smith and the decisions that have beset Sally Grover, particularly when they are taking away women's rights and prioritising transgender policies. People deserve to know who is responsible for these rulings. And if we're going to go down that path, then maybe it should apply to everything. Name the judges behind every major decision. Well, I can do that. I'll phone Kirralie Smith when I get to this ad break, and I'll find out who this judge was in the Supreme Court case that she faced and lost. We'll take a break. This is 2SM and the Super Radio Network. Alan, thank you so much for that email about who the judge is, because you have hit the jackpot. Have a listen to this. The Supreme Court judge in New South Wales who presided over and delivered the appeal judgment against activist Kirralie Smith and her organisation Binary Australia was Justice Belinda Rigg. Now, does that ring a bell for people? Yes, it should, because in August last year, Justice Belinda Rigg refused an application by the Commissioner of Police and the New South Wales Government for an order under the Summary Offences Act prohibiting a planned protest on the Sydney Harbour Bridge. She okayed the Palestine Action Group march over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. She was the one that didn't take what police were saying as worthy, despite the fact that the thing had to be stopped 3/4 of the way through because there was a crush. So the police commissioner knew what was about to happen. And despite the state government warning against it, she was the one who said, yeah, let the Palestinian protesters and all those Hamas-loving people march over the Sydney Harbour Bridge. That's Justice Belinda Rigg. And that's Justice Belinda Rigg in the case of Kirralie Smith, who dared to out the transgender women, biological men, from playing in that soccer competition. So much for freedom of speech. On one hand, it's freedom of speech for one particular minority group, but not freedom of speech for those who are trying to search for a little bit of common sense. Peter, good morning.
How you going? I have to give the yay for the day for the bloke suggested we should call out the judges on these major decisions, even halfway through on the first trial, the second trial, the third trial, when they're going the wrong way to common sense. And you are the castle of common sense. All these judges had mothers. There's no way out of it, and they can't understand what a mother is or a woman.
And that makes it even more ridiculous, doesn't it?
Doesn't it ever? Doesn't it ever? So you've got to start calling it out like Ray Hadley used to, and things changed.
Yeah, it's interesting, Peter, when you talk about the judges and the female judges. Is Belinda Rigg, I wonder whether Belinda Rigg has ever had someone like a transgender woman, a biological male, come into her bathroom in her chambers in Phillip Street. I bet she hasn't.
Stark naked. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah. But this is what she's allowing as law.
That's right, and she needs to be pulled down on it. And the people wouldn't pass the pub test.
Yeah. You're quite right. Good on you, Peter. Thank you very much for that. Now, BHP is facing industrial action in West Australia's Pilbara, with unions threatening a 24-hour strike at the mining giant's Port Hedland operations. The combined ports unions, including the Electrical Trades Union, Australian Manufacturing Workers Union and Australian Workers Union, have lodged notice with the Fair Work Commission for workers to walk off the job on August the 9th from 5:30am in a new round of bargaining. The planned strike would allow a 24-hour ban on ship loading the day before, potentially disrupting one of the world's biggest iron ore export hubs. The action comes as unions and BHP remain locked in negotiations over a new workplace agreement. I'm just noticing that Angus Taylor, the opposition leader, is in WA today and he's holding a press conference. He's in Perth, as a matter of fact. Let's find out what he's talking about.
To have a strong economy. A strong economy, and Western Australia knows this, a strong economy means that businesses and households have growing incomes and they're able to pay tax out of that supports all of the things we need, whether it's making sure that older Australians have private health insurance, or whether it's making sure that aged care has the support it needs, that childcare has the support it needs, that the infrastructure investment goes into place, that our Defence Force has the investment that it needs in critical places like at Henderson, not far from here. I mean, this is the critical issue for our country. We need a strong economy. And if you don't have a strong economy, you will not have the revenues for government that are able to support all of the things that I just talked about.
So you say the government shouldn't cut anything?
Well, no, I think government should cut a whole lot of waste. I mean, the government's net zero bureaucracy should go. It's just not right that the home deposit scheme, the 5% home deposit scheme, should be available to people as soon as they arrive in this country before they become citizens. There's lots of areas of waste that should go. Chris Bowen holding a climate conference in the South Pacific where no one's turning up. I mean, this is the money that shouldn't be spent. So there's lots of areas of waste that can be cut back. But the most important thing we need to see is a strong and growing economy, and I know how important Western Australia is to making sure that's the case.
OK, that's Angus Taylor. With the focus on the economy, that is the right direction to take. Are they listening to Angus Taylor at the moment, or is anyone just listening to... I think people are just listening to Pauline Hanson right now and not tend to listen to Angus Taylor, but he's saying the right things. That is important. We need to put the focus back on the economy and not spend $150 million setting up a pre-COP conference in Fiji. What could we have done with $150 million, do you think? A lot. Now, today's quite an anniversary. 70 years ago today, poker machines were legalised in New South Wales clubs. Didn't that change the way our culture socialised and what people did with their spare time? I know people who are like they are obsessed with poker machines, but it is their way of relaxing. It's their social breakout. It's sad but true. And now they're in not just clubs; they're in pubs everywhere, and we've got a casino on every corner. Not such a welcome anniversary, but 70 years ago today, they came into New South Wales clubs. Norm, good morning.
G'day, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing very well. My father's name was Norm.
It's a bit of an old-fashioned name at the moment, but anyway, I'm a blast from the past, maybe.
Yeah, it'll come back into fashion like they all do, you know?
Yeah, they all go around, mate.
Yeah.
The reason for the quick call, I won't take up much of your time, but maybe a possible solution to this transgender to and froing with the different outfits that promote it or denigrate it or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe legislation, if when you are born, you are legislated, your sex at birth is legislated that for the rest of your life, in the eyes of the law, you will be deemed that sex.
Well, that'd be good if we didn't have a premier like Chris Minns in New South Wales, because he believes that people should change the factual history of their gender at birth. He allows people to change their birth certificate.
But it's just, there is just obviously no common sense, which you allude to all the time, and everybody with half a brain would understand that there is just no common sense in this issue. Like, I don't care if I'm born a male, I'm a male the rest of my life. If I want to dress up as a woman and prance around, well, that's fine. But I'm still biologically a male.
Yeah, well, we're falsifying birth certificates now, and that's legal. We're falsifying birth certificates. If we had an ID card in this country and we had to name what sex we were, I can understand why there would be an avenue for people to change the sex if they wanted to, because that is an identification card of who you are now. But a birth certificate is a factual, historic document that we're now legally forging.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. It's just craziness gone even more crazy.
Yeah. And if we had a sensible, common sense federal government, they would make it law that you can't change your birth certificate.
Yeah, well, I don't think that'll ever happen. Don't hold your breath for that, Chris, I don't think.
Yeah, good on you, Norm. Thank you very much. Vilma, hi.
Hello there. I just wanted to share with a like-minded person the wonderful belly laugh I've had this morning, because I didn't know what Pauline Hanson's case was about that she lost.
Right.
So I looked it up on Google, read that, and what she said.
Yeah, pee off to Pakistan.
I'm still laughing about that.
Can you believe that she's been smashed as much as she has been in various jurisdictions on this? Can you believe this?
We've got little to do. Unfortunately. But I just wanted to share that bit with you.
I'm glad that you found out, and I'm glad it gave you a belly laugh, Vilma. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. We will take a break. Oh, just before we do, the Telegraph is running a story saying that more than 110 people have been charged during a major police crackdown on retail crime. This is good news. I hate retail crime, and I've seen a little bit of it myself when I've been in stores like DJs and that, where there's no customer service anymore, and people just steal stuff. I've seen it. 110 people have been charged across Sydney's northwest. It's a 2-day operation. Operation Percentile saw police targeting shoplifting, assaults on retail workers, good, and other retail-related offending at major shopping centres and transport hubs in Parramatta, Chatswood, Hornsby, Penrith, Mount Druitt and Blacktown. So in the southwest, in the west, and also to the north. Working alongside retailers and loss prevention staff, officers charged 116 people with a combined 130 offences during the operation. Hopefully it deters the next criminal in a retail store near you. We will take a break, a news update, and Graham Hughes coming in too. Diane Coveney-Garland has all the latest news.
Thank you, Chris. Australian firefighters have been sent to Europe to help battle the wildfires. A disqualified driver has allegedly returned a blood alcohol reading of nearly 8 times the legal limit, and Australia have won 51 gold medals at the Commonwealth Games. We'll have those stories and more at the top of the hour.
Hang on. 8 times the legal limit? What is that, 0.4?
Well, at 0.375, so almost 8 times. Incredible. I don't know how people can walk if they've had that much to drink. Seriously, I just...
Well, that's why he drove, because he couldn't walk. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Diane Coveney-Garland. There you have it, which brings us to this.
It's been 19 years, but the Broncos are back on top of the rugby league world.
Sport with Graham Hughes, brought to you by Arbavitae. The only good tip you'll need all weekend. Go to arbavitae.com.au to order.
Well, Graham Hughes, how do we even start describing last night's match? Now, I didn't see a second of it. I've seen the highlights this morning. What were they doing, playing touch football?
I got no idea what happened. I mean, talk about a massacre. If I was the Roosters, I would have just declared at half-time and left them to it. You know?
Yes, if you could. Because at half-time, 40-odd, and I thought to myself, if that's the half-time score, they can get to 100.
Yeah, look, it goes way back into the 30s, and I hate to say it that one of the scores way back in the 30s was the old Berries or the Bulldogs now. But it's amazing. Look, that shouldn't happen.
No.
I mean, the number of missed tackles was extraordinary. Like 40, 41, 42 missed tackles.
And they were at home?
And it was, and a good Thursday night crowd. I mean, it was just extraordinary. Sammy Walker, of course, was the star. 3 tries and a whole heap of goals. It's going to cost Nick Politis a nice amount of money to try and keep him. But, I mean, he'll be, depending upon what they do with caps going forward, he'll be in the area of, they're suggesting 1.4, 1.5 million a year. So
yeah, this is coming at a good time for him in
Absolutely.
that negotiation. But what about Todd Payten? Thank God he signed 4 weeks ago the coaching extension before this game happened.
Well, you are talking about a contender for the 8.
Yes.
And they've got to buy up their sleeves. So and with the draw they've got, they should make the 8.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in all reality, I mean, can you take anything serious now after 82-12?
And
I mean,
he had to apologise to fans.
He did. He apologised publicly to all the fans. It'll be interesting to see next start how they play.
Okay. Hopefully tonight's games won't be a runaway, although who knows if the Dolphins are on fire or they're not. They've had a topsy-turvy kind of last 4 weeks.
Oh, look, they're still a threat. Talking of points, they've got plenty of points in them to score. Their stars should take control of the game against the Dragons tonight. And the Dragons have dropped their 5'8", Daniel Atkinson. Right. So Dolphins to win well.
They've always had a problem with their kicking, the St George Dragons. This year and last year, that fifth tackle kicking has never been good.
No, they're still struggling to find the right balance. When they pick a good 7 and 6 is when you'll see them surge back.
Yeah. Storm versus the Bulldogs. Your Bulldoggies are on fire, mate.
Yeah, they're playing good footy. They're hurting in defence. Whenever the Dogs start really putting in good performances in defence is when I really like what they do. No Cam Munster. They've got to travel to Melbourne, of course, to take on the Storm, which is always tough. Yeah. But I expect them to win and continue on that surge towards the 8.
Okay, Saturday, as they say on Fox, it's a Super Saturday, 3 games. Firstly, the Titans up against the Warriors. Now, hopefully the Warriors got a good kick up the rear end after last week's game.
Yeah, they've been a bit disappointing the last couple of weeks, but prior to that, certainly they were the second pick behind the Penrith Panthers. Look, I expect them to lift and maintain a strong position in the top 4. They've been good, the Titans. It'll be a good test for the Warriors to get back on track.
This could be a beauty, Panthers versus the Raiders. This could actually be the game of the round.
Yeah, this is the annual trip to Mudgee. So one way or another, win or lose, players can have a good taste of some fine New South Wales wines later on.
Later on, you mean?
Yeah.
Not beforehand, or the night before.
Past 3-4 weeks, the Raiders have posted 154 points. So the Panthers need to turn up in defence. I expect them to win, but this is a really good game, possibly the game of the round.
Now that the Broncos know they can't make the 8, I wonder whether they'll pick up their game or throw it in halfway through. They're up against the Knights.
Yeah, football's funny, isn't it? I mean, they're not going to make the 8, yet they're $1.50 favourites to beat the Knights, who are under pressure. We were talking about how well they were going 2 and 3 weeks ago, the Knights. They cannot afford to drop this game. They still have a tough draw ahead. This is another good game, but Broncos, I think, to win.
Well, you've got Dane Gagai back in. You've also got Fletcher Sharp in his best position, which is 6, not 1. Kalen Ponga's back in as well.
Yeah.
And yes, they've lost Dylan Brown and they've lost the other forward with his leg. But I think they might put their dukes up. I think the Knights.
Oh, I don't doubt that. But the Broncos, of course, only recently have had that win over Penrith. So, and they've got most of their players back on deck.
Okay, Sunday. I fear the Sharks big time at Shark Park against my Rabbitohs.
And you should be. They've been in outstanding form. Yeah. The Rabbits have got injury concerns still. They have to put up a mighty defensive performance in this game. Braden Trindle and Nico Hines are absolutely on fire. 6 and 7 are just killing it together. If they're not in touch with their defence, the Rabbits, the scoreline could really blow out.
And it's no coincidence that the Sharks have very, very few injury problems at the moment, which is one of the reasons why they can field, their top 13.
Yeah.
And with Cameron McGuinness back in the side, that's a big plus.
Yeah, and you and I spoke looking at the draw some weeks ago about teams. And I did say to you that if you have a good long look at the draw, the Sharks have the easiest run in.
Right.
To the semi-finals. So they should stay in the top 4 and they should post quite a few points in this one.
So after 2 weeks of the Doohy ruckus, what will the West Tigers do against the Parramatta Eels?
That's a really good question. Look, it looks as though they've settled their differences. Whether they can go in with any real confidence, I'm not sure, because the Eels have put up some good performances in recent weeks against top-notch teams. Look, I expect the Eels to win, but it will be interesting to see if the dressing room can be settled with some sort of victory here for the West Tigers.
You were speaking about this on Talking Sport yesterday. Corey Jensen, the Bronco and the Cowboy, who was forced into early retirement because of clots on the lung. How does that happen? Is that just a health injury or a health problem that has nothing to do with rugby league?
Well, there was a problem there for him, yes, and he's even searched overseas for results before he made his decision to retire from the game. So he's seen the very best people. I feel for him. He's just one of those great, honest NRL players, not the superstar in his team, but an important member of the team.
Yeah.
I feel for him. We're trying to get him on to come and have a chat on Talking Sport this afternoon. Well done on a terrific career. He can do what very few get to do and say that he was in a premiership winning team.
Yeah, and he's one of Michael Maguire's favourite players, a workhorse. No-nonsense workhorse. Gets a lot done.
Always turns up for it.
Yeah. In tennis, Cruz Hewitt, Leighton's son, got a little bit of a lesson from another Aussie.
Yes, 17 years of age, and he gets into the second round of an ATP tournament. I mean, he's a young star, but he came up against another great Aussie, Alex de Minaur. Put him away 6-2, 6-4. But with the loss, he moves 255 places from where he was in the ratings. He's now 357 in the world.
Right.
So you do the sums, add them together and see where he was, but he has shifted amazingly. This was a Washington ATP event. So it's good that he got through to a second round clash, and de Minaur simply said to him at the net, I'll be seeing a lot of you over the next 10 years.
And in the Commonwealth Games, I have marvelled at what the swim team has been able to achieve. But, boy, the track and field team, our speed is out of all expectation.
Yeah, and so you should have said that about the swim team. 37 gold out of a possible 76. They had 76 medals in the total in the pool. And now, as a result, with the athletics that has picked up for us, 51 gold, 24 silver, 35, 110 medals, and a couple of wraps here to stand out. There was a world record, finally, in the C4, C5, 4,000 metre pursuit. That's Tara Nyland, who's a Paralympian. Now, she's been 5 times world champion. That 4,000 metre pursuit, she was averaging 49.57 Ks over the 4,000 metres.
Wow.
Now, talk about fit. And Rose Davies, who did what nobody else has done before, she won the double, the 5,000 and 10,000 metres. So well done to her.
Some amazing performances.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And, it augurs well for when we line up in the Olympic Games in 2 years' time. Looking forward to that. We'll be looking forward to listening to Talk and Sport this afternoon. Any special guests coming in?
Well, as I said, hopefully we'll get Corey Jensen.
Okay.
I mean, talk about a guy that's had to call it quits way, way, way too soon.
Yeah, certainly is. Thank you, Graham. Thank you, mate.
Have a good weekend.
Graham Hughes and Talk and Sport. Now, we've both been talking about Arbor Vitae Joint Health, and we've been doing it for some time, and it's about getting rid of your aches and pains, and you've got to consider it. If you haven't tried it, how does a $17 discount on the recommended retail price sound? Well, you can get that from Chemist Warehouse stores. And there are 570 Chemist Warehouse outlets around Australia, so you won't have a problem finding Arbor Vitae. If you love it, stock up, because for a limited time, you can get your hands on a 1 litre bottle of Arbor Vitae Joint Health for $54.99. That's 24% off. So if you've got one at home and you are taking it, that's great, but stock up now. At this price, this is the time to do it. And with its active ingredient, pycnogenol, this is the secret ingredient, really, the French maritime pine bark extract, which so many tests have proven makes a great difference to those with mild arthritis, inflammation and joint pain. So we've given you the secret. Find your closest store by jumping onto chemistwarehouse.com.au/store locator. Try it today. You've got nothing to lose except those aches and pains. And until the 5th of August, you'll save $16 a bottle at Chemist. Hey, happy birthday if you've got one today. You share it with a terrific bloke, a great Australian singer, Russell Morris, who turned 78 today. We'll take you back to 1969 and his biggest hit. It's still one of the great songs in Australian music. Well done to Russell Morris. Happy birthday to you, Russell, as well. Now, I love Mudgee, especially at this time of the year, with its beautiful sunny days. Fantastic if you're looking for the perfect country escape. World-class wineries, great restaurants, local markets, stunning country scenery. And you must stay in comfort at the Winning Post Motor Inn with their on-site restaurant, the Charnwood Food and Wine. It is a fantastic complex. You can relax in boutique luxury accommodation at the Horatio as well, because it has the Charnwood Estate Winery connected to it. So have some wonderful times in Mudgee. You can use Mudgee as a place to go to other places like Golgong, Hill End, Bathurst, Dubbo, Orange, and then get back to Mudgee. Get 2 doses of Mudgee. Stay in the Winning Post Motor Inn or the Horatio. And to remember your stay, you'll receive a complimentary bottle of Charnwood Estate wine. Thank you so much for that, Greg Dowker. He's a good man, Greg. Book your escape today at thewinningpostmotorin.com.au or thehoratio.com.au. Have a look at both those properties. They are excellent. And as we know, Mudgee, one of the greatest places in country New South Wales. I'll leave you with a little bit more Russell Morris. You enjoy your weekend. Make sure you're back here at the same time on Monday. Looking forward to your company then on the Castle of Common Sense.